Hello from Sojourn, it's Tara Boothby, and today I want to talk about self-compassion. Actually, if you follow us on Instagram, I just posted this beautiful series of memes, pictures of different types of self-compassion. So just putting that out there, it's another little resource and a beautiful thing to notice after you're done watching this video. So this morning when I was driving in, I was thinking about shooting this video, and I had a lovely book come to mind. It's actually one of my favorites. I travel with this book almost always. Og Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. And in this book there's 10 scrolls, and these are all beautiful habits, virtues to adapt for ourselves. On the topic of love, Og says, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Henceforth, I will look upon all things with love. There's also a point that he makes about looking at others with the eyes of love and holding space inside of us for love so that we can, exemplify it to others, that they can be drawn more to us, that they feel our love. So this habit, practicing love, creating some space for connection with others. However, self-compassion is really about self-love, and how do we really cultivate a practice of self-compassion and self-love. So one of the benefits of self-compassion is really it further evokes a sense of belonging. The more I feel that I belong in this body, in this temple, the more I understand the value and the sacredness of this space, that this space is full of love, that I can be full of love for myself. And actually, I am already included in the heart of love, a greater schema of love. That's really the practice. It's a spiritual practice, self-compassion and self-love. It's not selfishness, it's not self-care. Self-care is very important, but it's something adjacent to self-compassion. Self-compassion is a spiritual discipline. And if you read a book such as The Greatest Salesman in the World, which I highly, highly recommend, it'll transform your life, we realize that love is a spiritual discipline, and self-compassion is within that spiritual discipline of love. So belonging within, and a greater sense of being included in this large schema of love, of the heart, the beautiful spiritual heart of love is what I will call it. As well, the more I love me, the more I love you, the more I experience belonging with others. And others feel more belonging with me. The other real benefit of self-compassion, it fits lovely with emotionally focused models of thought, experiential attachment focused therapy, attachment science, is that self-compassion allows us space for better self-regulation, more accurately, better emotional regulation. So if I'm self-compassionate, I can work better with my central nervous system, I can be aware of my body, I will be more embodied, so I can feel where anxiety lives, where fear lives, where sadness lives. I can feel where joy lives. I can hear a beautiful sentiment and have tears come to my eyes. I can join with people in their experience. I know when I'm being invited into some other person's experience, their grieving, their sorrow. I can come in. So I'm better able to practice self-empathy and empathy for others. And so emotional regulation. I notice, I feel, I can experience and talk to myself about the feelings that I have. So this richness, emotional richness of being able to feel and enjoy those emotions. I enjoy all my emotions, the good and the bad. It's a real pleasure to learn how to enjoy sadness and see its value. Sounds strange, but self-compassion lends us space for this. It's an existential shift. Self-compassion lends itself to an existential shift. So I'm going to jump ahead to one of my points here because I'm starting to talk about existentialism. Self-compassion lends us a better ability for meaning making. I was just re-listening to one of our vlogs with one of my mentors, Paul Wong, who is an amazing Canadian Chinese theorist, who is just a lovely, lovely person who has such a voice for understanding meaning making. And if you get a chance to read some of his stuff, he's amazingly intelligent. But Paul is an advocate for Viktor Frankl's work, for a lot of the existential pieces. And these beautiful theorists really say that meaning is really synonymous with suffering and struggle. Bad things will happen. We make meaning from them. So we will make meaning from the bad things that happen. We had this really weird experience in 2020 globally, and we all made meaning from that. And you can see that there's a lot of tension, especially up in Alberta, about the meaning that people were making. It was a division of people occurred because of the different types of meaning that people were making. So bad things will happen. We make meaning from them. What meaning will you choose to make? Self-compassion creates a space within us, within me. The more self-compassion I have, the more I fill this vessel with love, the more I see love in the world around me, the more I greet this day with love in my heart, the more I can invite in my experience of suffering and struggle and sit with it and find the beauty in it. And I can love myself in that struggle and that suffering, so that I can make a meaning that's going to carry me forward, a hope and a future. I want a meaning for my future that is filled with hope and beauty, that there is beauty from ashes. You know, all these meaningful proverbs that I can further experience when I have self-compassion. In self-loathing, the meaning that I make is not good. I don't want a hate-based meaning. If I hate myself, I'm living in a hate-centric worldview. If I have self-compassion, I'm living in a compassionate worldview. That I love me, I can love others better, that we can have a spiritual discipline that we're sharing together. What a beautiful worldview, you know? I can just go off on meaning for a really long time. So the capacity, self-compassion just creates this extended capacity where we can have better emotional regulation, more meaning making, all of these things that are really going to extend a higher quality of life. When I sit with people get stuck in pain. I get stuck in pain. We're gonna get stuck in pain. Pain is hard. It's hard to be in, even though the goal is to make a good meaning from it. A love-centric meaning is the goal. That's self-compassion. But when I sit with people who are in a pain spot, and like I have some experience sitting with people, I cannot believe the extent of pain I have noticed with people when it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And I've sat with people who feel they've done the worst things possible. What I like to say is, what's so bad about you? What is so bad about you that you should be excluded from the heart of love? And why would love exclude anybody? I'm just saying it. Like, what is your definition of love if you believe that it will be excluded from you personally? That's a fundamental flaw in our thinking, that love is omitted from me. And if we're struggling with self-compassion, I think this is a little tool tip here, getting slow and really considering, what are my beliefs about love? Who do I actually think God is? What do I think a marriage is? What is my view of parenting and friendship and really loving me? Love your neighbor as yourself. there's so much in that Christian commandment, and I'm sorry to throw some specific faith-based things out there, but I know in other versions of spiritual literature there's something very similar. Love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. I get really hung up on that little piece. I think it's really important that as yourself. We can give to everybody else. We can have a smile on our face and try to make everybody feel good. But what about that as yourself? In good spiritual practice, there's space for self-compassion. The further self-compassion that we have for the temple that we are in, which is our body, the more spiritual gifts and expression that we can have with others. However, self-compassion can be just for you. C.S. Lewis says, God loves each of us as if there's only one of us. That's a beautiful thing to meditate on. What if I was only woman left on earth? It'd be pretty lonely, but I would still be in the heart of love. That realization is self-compassion. Also this week, I had a beautiful conversation with my current mentor, Jim Furrow, who is just a lovely, emotionally focused trainer, supervisor, everything. He's lovely. I'm blessed to know him. And we were talking about what he calls agency. Self-compassion is something that really allows us capacity for agency. And how I really understand agency in my own life is, and it's broader, but to sum it up, is self-compassion allows me agency, which is my ability to know where I am going, to have belief that I am going somewhere. I have a hope in a future. I have a hope in a future, and I am included. I'm included with people. I'm included within myself, and I am included in the heart of love. So all of those beautiful things really allow me to know that I am going somewhere. I'm not just going somewhere, I'm going somewhere good. And there will be struggle, and there will be pain. I will have self-doubt. I will feel unliked or hated. I will not like decisions that I make. I'll make mistakes as a mom. I'll make mistakes as a wife. I will forget to send an email, or feel like I got it wrong for a client, and I love my client so much. It's painful when I worry that I haven't done enough, or maybe somebody else could do better. Imposter syndrome. We talked about that on the blog, right? However, self-compassion gives me the agency to trust myself more, so I can have more trust. I can have a trust-centric meaning for my future. I do have trust for my future, whatever it is. And it's hard to release control to tomorrow, but I have no control over it. And self-compassion helps my body to be at peace with today. Here is today. The lilies of the field, I'm just hanging out with them. Okay, I'm throwing out all sorts of metaphors. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff coming to my mind as I'm talking about self-compassion. And my experience in this moment, to get really immediate, is it feels good to talk about self-compassion, and my body's just naturally doing something here. It's bringing to me different parts, different insights or teachings, people that have really built into me for my self-love. And in this moment, I actually feel affirmed of how I love myself. Ogman Dingo, his name is so hard to say, the greatest salesman in the world. I think that was one of the pivotal shifts in my self-compassion. Actually, when I picked up that book, I was going through the most traumatic time of my life, the most painful struggle that I've gone through. And that book was really helpful. I remember reading about, I will greet this day with love in my heart. Henceforth will I look upon everything with love. And really trying to look through the lens of love. It was an existential shift. Self-compassion evokes an existential shift. It heightens our capacity for meaning. It heightens our capacity for agency. It is a spiritual discipline adjacent to self-care. It's not self-care. Self-care is action. My benefit, my place for self-compassion is meditative. It's prayerful. It's writing. It's allowing things to wash over me. You know, you see these beautiful prayerful things where people lift the smoke and they pour it over them. And I have that experience, like being anointed with oil. Somebody is baptizing me in love. These are a few things that I would say. These are the sort of self-care disciplines that have led me to more self-compassion. Reading some really good literature. I love Atlas of the Heart. That's a great book, Brene Brown. I love The Greatest Salesman in the World a bit more because of what it did to transform my heart. I think having conversations about spirituality, asking big questions. So if we get slow and we sit inside of our bodies, we can ask big questions. If you watched my conversation with the Naked Pastor, he's got a great book about asking questions. I also have a couple theology buddies. Tony, who's on our vlog a lot, is one of them. He's a lovely person to shoot the shit with about spirituality. And then Jared Robinson is a good friend of mine who I talk theology with. He hasn't been on our vlog for a while. Also, one of the simplest self-compassion, self-care tips I have is I always have teachers in my life. I mentioned Jim. He's beautiful. I have several other teachers, mentors. I'm in a beautiful study about Hebrew teachings, and I have so many lovely teachers in that group. William Paul Young is somebody who I am privileged to notice as a mentor. Father Kenneth, who's been on our vlog. I want you to know people. I would say part of what's really helped me is I've learned to ask for help, and I've learned to continue to have teachers in my life. Trusting that I'm included is hard. And if you meditate on the fact that you actually are really, really included, you are so included. I think that it's an interesting dilemma. It's an existential crisis to trust that we really are included in this giant schema, this heart of love. And to bring it in that I am just included in this lovely body that I love so much. Even though sometimes I'm critical of it. You know, that we are included. You are included in your body. You are included in your community. And you are included globally and cosmologically. Like, we are just so included in this grand constellation. So do practice self-care and do get slow. Fred Rogers, I'll pretend he's a mentor of mine. I love that man. I'm so thankful for his legacy. I saw somebody made a little TikTok reel thing or whatever, and it was a clip of Fred speaking, and he just said, you know, this place is so noisy. It's so noisy out there, and nobody's getting slow and still and quiet. So I advocate, I appeal to you to create and cultivate some silence in your life. Get slow, get still, think, read, be with people, and allow love to fall all over you. All right, this is so philosophical. I'm talking from the heart about self-compassion, so this is my version of self-compassion. This is really just how Tara is with self-compassion and how it exists in me. And I guess, I hope too, because I'm really being immediate here, I feel a sense of understanding of self-compassion, and as I speak about it, it becomes more and more clear to me. So the attachment experience of self-compassion is that it allows us to better understand ourselves, so we better understand our needs, so that we can more clearly ask for them or express them. I practice self-compassion. And it feels good to say that. It's surprising. I don't feel egotistical to say it. I feel a tenderness behind my eyes to know I practice self-compassion. I actually love myself. It feels moving. And it's nice to have clarity to say that it's not a real need, but I've answered a need inside of myself by practicing self-compassion. And so it's nice to be clear with myself and to clearly express it here. Okay, those are my notes. If I think of anything else, I'll make a part 2. Blessings on your day, peace and love. You belong, you are included.